Welcome to Manor Farm Fishing in Biggleswade. I'm Ali Hamidi and I'm joined by 30 new young budding carp anglers learning from 15 of the best anglers in the land. They're going to be learning about baits, about rigs, about fish care, in fact everything they need to put into their carp catching armoury. There's already rigs being taught, there's fish being caught. This is Carp Academy 2012. Well, as always, fish seem to come out really quickly. We're on the Becks Lake. Andrew Ending's the tutor and Marcus is the lucky captor. So Andrew, firstly, tell us how you caught it.
Well, what we done last year, we got baits out really quickly and it worked for us. So I said to the guys, I had a quick look at their rigs and put some baits on and got them out, and straight away we were into a fish.
So it was just single hook bait fishing, really?
Yeah, it was, yeah, just with a couple of baits just scattered around it, but nothing much, not to start with.
Great stuff, and the wind's trickling down here nicely. So Marcus, I reckon there's a few more fish to come.
Hopefully.
Have you learnt a little bit already?
Yeah, well, because we've got the trees over there, swim casting's not very good, so got down on one knee and shortened up a bit and just slung it out basically, just whipped it out a bit.
Well, a stunning little carp, and I bet there's loads more to come.
These lakes are perfect for using with spod mixes. So first of all, I'm just going to put a little bit of mixed nuts in there and other little bits of particle. You can make this yourself if you want to, just by soaking it overnight, bringing it to the boil and then just simmering it for about half an hour. And then good old-fashioned hemp. This stuff's got salt and pepper in it. Fish love spicy things, so when you're cooking it you can put peppers, chili peppers, black pepper in it. They love all of that, so a little bit of that as well. Then some pellets. This is a mixture of pellets, all different sizes, so they'll be breaking down at different times. A few of those in there. There's no bream in this particular lake, so you can use pellets. Carp absolutely love them, but if there's bream around then they hone in on it as well, so I only use pellets when there are no bream around. So a few boilies and I'm going to crush them up. That means there's more food items going into the swim and it makes the boilies go further as well, so you get more out of one bag. And just to cut the turns, just coarse crush on the boilies. It doesn't matter if a few whole ones fit in there as well. And what we're basically doing is getting the fish to stay in one area and just keep feeding and feeding and feeding in one area. So we can fish a number of hook baits over the top of this. We can fish a boilie, we can fish a bit of plastic corn, we can fish a sort of pellet imitation on there. All of those will work over the top, and it only takes a few minutes to do it. So you can buy the ready done stuff as I'm using now, or you can cook your own and it makes it a bit cheaper. But if you just mix a nice combination of different foods that the carp love, they'll be attracted into that in no time. We're going to start off with probably 10 or 15 spodfuls, and we're going to put 2 or 3 more in after we catch every fish. So let's just mix it up. I'd normally put a little bit more boilie in there, but what's going to happen is all the lovely juices from that particle is going to soak into the pellet, it's going to soak into the boilies, and that lovely munger is what's going to attract our carp into the swim. Wicked. This is spodding. It's basically a way of applying the bait into the swim, and because we've got loads of small items we can't throw them or catapult them, so we're using a spare rod and reel to put it out there. So first of all, the rod and reel, very important for this job. This is a reel made for spodding, so it winds in very quickly. You're doing loads of casting during the day, so you want to get the spod back in towards you as quickly as possible. And that's loaded up with floating braided line. That's very thin, so it casts really easily. And also it sits on the surface layers of the water, so when I wind the spod back in again it comes back in really easily. And to that I've attached a heavier braided leader, so a 50-pound braided leader, so when I'm casting nothing's going to snap, that's going to take the force of the cast. The rod itself, again specifically for spodding, much stiffer than a normal carp rod. This is about 4.5 pounds test curve, and it's actually called a spod rod. So it's going to put that spod out, which weighs about 5 or 6 ounces when it's full of stuff. It's going to put that out easily. If I put that kind of spod on a normal fishing rod, it would bend the rod over too much and the casting wouldn't be accurate. Then the spod itself, again, very, very important, made for the job, super lightweight with nothing in it, a real buoyant, visible nose cone, so it comes up to the top quickly and dumps all that bait out the back of it. And then on the back of the spod, you've got some tails which are nice and stiff. That lifts the back out of the water when you wind it in and brings it in more easily. So that's the kit you use. You don't have to spend a fortune on it, but getting the right stuff straight away will get you a lot more distance. So the technique, I've got everything in front of me here, so I'm just going to go straight down to the bucket of bait, 2 or 3 scoops, push it down with my thumb, so it's all in the nose of the spod. Just wash my hand off, and then I've got my float that I've put out already. We found a nice gravelly area by those reeds. I'm just checking the line's not tangled around the tip of the rod, and a nice smooth action out towards that float. That's just hit the clip. That's, to be honest with you, that is miles too far away from the float. That's probably 8 feet away. We want to be getting the spods a couple of feet away either side of the float. We're trying to concentrate the fish into one area. The more you spread it out with this sort of fishing, the more you spread the fish out. So I've just flicked it a couple of times to shake the stuff out the back, and then just carefully lift the line up off the surface, and just a constant wind. You don't want to be fighting with the spod. Just wind it constantly along the surface, up to my hand, straight into the bucket. Couple of 3 scoops, press it down with your thumb, so I'm not letting go of the rod, and then up again. And it's all about getting into a rhythm so you do get that accuracy. That's better. That's getting taken by the wind a little bit, but that's about 2 feet to the right of the float. So we're going to put about a dozen of those out for now, and then get the rigs over the top. That is spodding.
Well, I am joined by carp catching machine and BFG body double, Ed Betteridge. Ed, we're going to talk about marker floats because I presume from your fishing, all the big fish that you do around the country, marker float work and watercraft is very important.
Oh, definitely. It's really important to get the right spots and, you know, to get that lead and to get marked up exactly on the right sort of area, yeah.
So when you got in the swim with the lads, was this one of the first things you did?
Yeah, we messed around with the marker rod first and just worked out roughly what was out in their swim, you know, the gravel, the silt, and, you know, the makeup of the bottom in general. Right,
great. Well, I'm going to stop you right there. Let's talk about what each type of lake bed feels like, because I think that's the thing everyone wonders at home who's getting into fishing. What does gravel feel like? On the rod, what sort of sensation are you getting?
It's like a juddery sensation, so it's you can feel the rod tip tapping as you pull it back.
Almost like a little roach is stuck on the end.
Yeah, like that, yeah.
Yeah, so that just taps along, and that tells you that you've got a nice, clean, gravelly bottom. Does the type of gravel vary? Do you get lumpier gravel or?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Sometimes you get some big old rocks down there, and other times it's smooth, almost like sand, and you can tell that, you know, when you pull the lead back over the bottom.
Is that because the lead at times will almost grab behind the rock, a big rock, chink off, and go to the next one?
Definitely, you can certainly feel it bumping over each rock as it goes over. So if the bumps are really pronounced, you know it's big rocks, and if it's a lot smoother and you just feel the odd little jag here and there, you know it's kind of, you know, tight little bits of gravel.
Yeah, and I presume from your fishing you prefer the sort of smoother, cleaner stuff as opposed to the big lumpy rocks?
Yeah, the smoother stuff's a lot easier to fish over, a lot easier to present a bait over.
Okay, now let's move on to sort of silt. What sort of sensation do you get from the rod then?
It tends to be just smooth.
Yep.
That's the sort of silt to look for. When you pull the rod tip back and it just comes back, just glides back nice and smoothly. Sometimes with deeper silt, you know, it can take a bit to pull it through, but I want that nice little glide if I'm going to fish in silt.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that deeper silt, that stuff that's obviously smelly, not the best to present bait in, and your rod is almost arcing right round as you pull it back.
Yeah.
Okay, and then onto actual weed. What sort of sensation do you get when you're fishing into weed?
Oh, it normally just locks up completely. The tip just goes round as it finds a bit of a purchase on the weed, and yeah, you can just tell when it's weed. When you get the drop as well, you can't feel it hit into the lake bed. It just cushions down a little bit.
Landing on a cushion.
And then you try and pull it back, and it's just the rod tip just locks around, and it will just pull out eventually. But you know it's thick weed and it's not presentable.
So fishing-wise, if you're on a lake, let's say the Becks Lake, you've got variations between silt and gravel.
Yep.
What do you tend to favour to put your bait on?
It depends. I mean, if it's going to be a red hot day, which it isn't really today, then I like to be right on the top of a gravel bar in shallow water. If it's a bit more overcast and getting a bit cooler, I prefer to be further down the gravel bar.
Almost bottom of the shelf.
Yeah.
Maybe meeting the silt. That sort of thing?
That's a nice little area. I like to be just on the gravel as it meets the silt. I prefer presenting.
The crease, yeah.
Yeah, on the crease. Yeah. I always prefer presenting a bait on gravel rather than on silt, 9 times out of 10. But like I say, it just depends from day to day sometimes whether you want to be up on that top of the shelf or whether you want to be down towards the bottom of it.
And that only comes with experience, doesn't it? Catching fish from different spots and understanding what produces what in the certain conditions.
I've fished plenty of waters in my time, and you just tend to learn. I mean, waters differ from water to water, but essentially there is a kind of guide there and a rough idea of where you want to be on any given day.
Yep. And do you find, say, on a lake that's really silty, you want to find the gravel, and on a lake that's really gravelly, you like to find the silt?
Yeah, I mean, I won't always fish on the silt, but it's nice to find a bit of silt just to put a bait next to it.
You're right, great stuff. Let's move on to the setup really quickly. It's not your usual carp rod, this, and this ain't the usual line you use.
No, it's not.
You've got a really stiff rod by the feel of it.
That's a spod rod, yeah.
Yeah, and braided main line. What is the reason for that?
You can feel so much more through a braided main line. You know, there's no stretch in it. So when you cast out there, you can feel the donk a lot firmer, and when you pull back, everything that's transmitted through the rod tip is what's out there. Whereas if there's stretch in mono, you can't feel it.
Yeah, it takes away that sensation.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, and then the final thing, I know you do a lot of fishing on weedy lakes. Well, that's a really long boom. So you've got the drop zone marker there. That's quick linked onto the braid there.
Yep.
And then moving down, you've got over a foot boom and a tournament lead.
Yep.
Why the long boom?
Because I fish really, really weedy waters, and although I'm not too bothered about finding the depth and finding the spots in the weedy waters, sometimes you let weed then pull through onto gravel, and if weed's coated up a bit around there, it can stop it popping up, but I find with a longer boom, it will still pop up.
You've always got a head start. Well, there you go. A man that is used to catching loads of big fish from across the land, and marker floats plays a massive part in his fishing. Well, as you can tell by the very long hook link in the background, James Armstrong, the tutor, has got his boys using zigs, and they are catching from the off. A great little method, especially on lakes that are stuffed full of fish. It really does start catching you carp straight away. So we're going to watch this young man get this in, and hopefully we're going to have not only one carp to show you, but two. Well, how about this? Kieran with one, Josh with one. Jimmy, what were the tactics?
Zig rigs, we know the lake quite well, having fished here a few times with you. I saw a few fish on the surface, so thought we'd flick a zig out and it went straight away.
Well, lads, you having a good time?
Yeah, it's been great, thanks. Yeah, it's been great. It's right privilege, yeah.
Great, right privilege. Right, no better time to go and talk about zig rigs. Well, Jimmy, I literally get thousands of questions a year on zig rigs and how to use them effectively. I think the biggest mistake people make is too big a hook bait, too big a hook and too heavy a line. What's your advice?
Exactly that. I mean, you'll see there that I'm using a size 10 wide gape, that is. That's barbless, obviously, because of the rules today. We've got a tiny, tiny little hook bait, because what you're trying to do is mimic natural food in the water, whether that be insects or whatever.
Snails, anything that's mid-bound in the water.
Exactly, and then they snatch at that thinking it's natural larvae or whatever.
Now, I notice here you've got black underneath and yellow on the top. I presume as they're looking up...
Yeah, that's silhouettes against the sky. Obviously the sky is white, so the black will show up really well.
And if they're going over the top?
You've got the yellow, So exactly that. It's just going to catch their attention. Hopefully they'll snatch at it.
So to put that into context, that is probably about a 10 mil bit of foam, really, really small. You don't want big baits because then it looks unnatural. How many times do you see an 18 mil boilie floated mid-water? That's why the smaller the better, and the smaller the hook bait you have, the more takes you're going to get on zigs. Now, Jimmy, before you cast that out, I know you've been using a couple of tricks. What have you been
I
doing to the
have,
hook
yeah.
bait?
I've actually been popping some raspberry plume around the hook bait.
Right, show us how much you're putting on.
Right, it's
Yeah, if I hold it there, you do the gooing.
I'm literally smearing it around the outside. You can put as much or as little on as you want, really. But obviously this creates a lovely little halo around the hook bait in the water, and the carp go crazy for it.
So yeah, so you're almost covering that foam and getting it out there. And do you think the length of hair is important with the zig?
Paramount, yeah. It's got to be as short as possible. You'll see there that I've actually put some tubing over the eye as well. Which,
bit of like 0.75 silicone.
Yeah, exactly, and that holds it really tight to the shank.
So literally, because everything's already tight, why have a long hair? That's just meaning they can grab the hook bait and swim
without
off
the hook. Yeah.
Yep. All right, and then lengthwise and poundage, what pound line is this?
That's 8 pound cruiser control.
Okay, and then moving right up, so you got what?
It's a bit of a long zig, that one. That's actually 10 foot. We're fishing, there's 12 foot of water out there, and we're fishing 10 foot zig, so 2 foot under the surface.
So I'll pass you that.
Yep.
Right, let's have a look at the lead system, because again, this is nice and simple. You've just got pretty much probably the smallest lead they can get away with to reach the distance.
Yeah, we don't want the lead bouncing around in the fight. That's the last thing we want. So yeah, we're using, I think that's a 2 ounce, which is just right for getting the distance.
And allows them to keep a sort of straight line during the fight.
Precisely, yeah.
Okay, and then this is a very important part of using zigs. This is an anti-tangle sleeve.
Certainly is. I use that because on the cast it will kick the hook link away from the lead, which is paramount.
So it's doing this. So as it goes through flight, that's sort of hanging there, but what it does, it enables the hook link to pivot away.
Exactly.
And just keeps it from tangling around the main line or the tubing.
Exactly that.
All right, so once the zigs are out there, Jimmy, there's a bucket load of bait down here.
Yeah.
Let me pick it up, show you back at home. Loads of bits of pop-ups, and this is stuff that you've literally put together from bits that you cobbled together on the bank.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we didn't have dedicated spod slop, so there's a bit of everything in there, and the water makes it really, really milky and sloppy, and it'll lurk in the upper layers, which is exactly what we're looking for.
And then the goo around the hook baits, and you've also been putting that in the spod as well, haven't you?
I have, yeah. I've literally been putting that in the spod, then we've been plugging it with a little bit of ground bait, and then just squeezing goo in the top of the spod.
And that's sort of pluming out, giving you a big spread,
yeah,
and that's getting the fish going. Well, as you can see, on lakes that are stuffed with carp, zigs are really the way to go. Well, just to prove how great zig rigs are, James, is this your first ever carp caught on one?
This is.
Brilliant. Well, contrasting methods as well, because James, I believe you've had one off the bottom.
Yeah.
All right, and what was the exact sort of method?
Well, I just got a stick next to it and cast towards the reeds on the far side.
Brilliant, and both taught by their brilliant tutor, bait guru Mark Bryant, so we're now going to catch up with Mark and look at stick mixes. Well, you've already got your boys catching on contrasting methods, one on zigs, but the last one was also caught on a bag mix. So let's pick your brains on a good bag mix that anyone can take to any water across the land and be confident at catching fish.
Yeah, well now with all the stick mixes and pellets, there's a whole multitude of fantastic quality baits out there. A big emphasis for me is on liquid attraction, and for that I use a food bait as a dip, and that's basically a sinking liquid, and I contrast that with an oil-based dip which comes up and floats. So you've got something going along the bottom of the lake and rising up through the water column as well.
Yeah, one that's going to mark the bottom, so repeated casting is going to build that area, and then you've got them oils going up, so any fish in the upper layers are going to get picked off and hopefully drawn down to the bottom.
That's right, and the oil attaches itself to your flavour profiles of your bait and your dip hopefully as well. That comes up through the water column, dispersed on the top, and then you've got little trails coming back down, so you've got attraction working all the time for you.
Great, right, get started. Let's have a look how, because I know this is quite quick to do, so
yeah.
Firstly, a bit of the old Atlantic heat stick mix straight in there.
Yep, definitely.
Yep.
First of all, we put in the food dip. It's quite thick.
Yeah,
quite
that's
gloopy.
A fair old bit of it, isn't it?
It is, yeah, because we're putting it into little golf-sized bags, if you like.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to compress it really. So we can get away with a bit more liquid than we usually would use.
Turn that in there, yeah?
Yeah, we just mix that around, get that working in there.
So it's quite stodgy.
It is stodgy, yeah. We're going to stodge that even more liquid. We've got a very hot, spicy oil there.
Right, okay. Yep, you
So
can already smell that kicking out.
Yeah.
And is it important to put that in second as opposed to, you know, one or the other? Because I suppose the oil could get encased in the other one, could it?
Exactly, Ali, yeah. What I do is put the food base in because that goes in and coats all your your fine particles and absorbs quickly actually. And then the oil goes in and just coats it all the same.
Right, okay.
A lot of the guys we had mixing up, you've left the mix for about an hour or two now, which is absorbs it all in. But we just finish it off then with a splash of pellets because this is going in to quite a, let's say, a golf ball sort of size.
Yeah, so that quite really is nice and sticky,
Oh,
and that
it's
doesn't
really
melt
sticky.
the PVA, does it?
It doesn't, no, exactly. When you pull the bag down nice and tight, this is all the oil's dripping off it, and we actually finish it off by putting little golf ball sizes into the dip as well, into the oil, straight into the oil, straight on the cast, flattens the whole lake off. It's flattening from here all the way over to Annan Pennon, opposite us, like, you know. And fish roll, a couple of rolls, we've had to take straight away. So it's a really good, simple little method. All that though there looks quite wet. Give that 10 minutes or so, that'll be all soaked up nicely, especially as we add the pellets.
Brilliant stuff. Well, there you go, a really attractive stick mix that you can take anywhere and be rest assured you'll be getting bites from the off. It's been action day and night at Carp Academy, and this morning Mr. Kieran has managed to land another beauty. How big's this one, lad?
18.5 this one, it's a cracker.
Brilliant. Jimmy, he's fished really well, hasn't he?
He has, he's a keenie this one. He's been fishing all night and flicked the zigs out at 6 this morning, and that's the result.
Well, it's been a great first part to the Carp Academy. If you'd like to get some of the lessons that these guys have had, then visit thinkingtackle.com for more tips and tricks. All that's left to say from us is join us next time for more Carp Academy action. Enjoy your fishing and see you on the bank sometime.